Christopher Hitchens speaks with an impressive rhetorical force, but when you remove the strength of his voice, the applause of the audience, and the theatrical intensity, what remains is an argument driven far more by emotional assertion than by intellectual coherence. His technique is simple. He selects the worst behaviors of certain groups, amplifies them, then presents them as the natural expression of religion itself, as if faith were a monolithic engine of violence and regression. But when you look at the facts calmly, you realize that most of his examples do not describe religion as a belief system, but political manipulation, orchestrated outrage, and governments or factions exploiting religious sentiment for their own agenda. Hitchens blurs the line between the essence of religion and the abuse of religion, between personal faith and geopolitical strategy, between sincere believers and opportunists who use the sacred as a mask. That confusion is not analytical, it is ideological. When he speaks about the cartoon controversy, he describes it as if millions of believers worldwide woke up one morning with a collective desire to burn embassies. But the historical record shows something very different. These events were politically triggered, manipulated by governments, by militias, by groups who organized demonstrations weeks or months after the original publication. Religion was used as fuel, not as origin, yet Hitchens treats every believer as if they were organically linked to the extremists who acted violently. This is not analysis, it is oversimplification and a dangerously convenient one. He then condemns religious leaders for criticizing the caricatures rather than the violent reactions, as if expressing moral disagreement automatically aligned them with extremists. But condemning an offensive act does not equate to condoning violence. Secular groups condemn speech they find hateful all the time. Governments restrict certain expressions. Activists protest content they consider damaging. That does not transform any of them into supporters of terror or chaos. Hitchens uses moral outrage selectively. When religious leaders criticize disrespect, they are barbarians opening the gates. But when secular societies do the same, he calls it social responsibility. His standard shifts according to what helps his argument. He claims religions everywhere are determined to abolish everything we value, to destroy the foundations of civilization, to impose an ideology from the Stone Age. But nothing supports such an extreme vision. The overwhelming majority of religious people around the world wake up, go to work, raise families, love their communities, and pursue peace. If religion truly poisoned everything, if it inherently pushed people toward barbarism, then civilization would not have lasted for millennia in overwhelmingly religious societies. The truth is simpler and more grounded. Human beings, whether religious or atheist, can be good, corrupt, loving, violent, generous, or manipulative. Religion does not erase humanity's complexity. Hitchens' analysis collapses further when you notice that many of the conflicts he attributes to religion are historically rooted in economics, territory, power struggles, colonial history, ethnic identity, and social unrest. Religion is often the symbol, not the cause. If religion disappeared tomorrow morning, people would still fight over resources, borders, identity, and dominance, just as they did in explicitly atheistic regimes that produced immense suffering. The Soviet Union, Maoist China, the Khmer Rouge, these were not religious states, yet they displayed the same human tendencies toward oppression, violence, and totalitarian control. The flaw is not in faith, it is in human nature. Hitchens avoids that conclusion because it contradicts his thesis. When he says, "We would be better off without religion," he offers no functional replacement for the spiritual, ethical, and existential roles religion has played for thousands of years. Humans seek meaning, transcendence, moral anchors, and a sense of belonging that cannot be erased by argument. Hitchens himself acknowledges this when he speaks of the numinous and the transcendent that human beings will continue to need. But he fails to recognize that these very impulses are what religion expresses. He wants the fruit of spirituality without the tree that produces it. He later states that man is the problem, not God. But if man is the problem, why place the blame on religion? If human beings are flawed, conflicted, and capable of violence, then removing God from their vocabulary does not cure the flaw. It simply changes the language with which they justify their behavior. What he calls poison is not faith. It is the human capacity to corrupt anything: politics, science, nationalism, ideology, atheism, or religion. Faith does not create that weakness. It reveals it. But acknowledging that would weaken his argument, so he simply avoids it. He insists that religion prevents rational thought, even though the greatest centers of learning in the world, medieval universities, monastic libraries, Islamic Golden Age academies, Jewish intellectual circles, were built by religious communities. Mathematics, astronomy, medicine, architecture, philosophy, and literature have all thrived in deeply religious civilizations. To say that religion poisons everything requires ignoring the entirety of human intellectual history. It is not argument, it is erasure. When he speaks of religious people as solipsistic, he does not notice the irony. To insist that one's personal worldview is the only rational position and to dismiss billions of believers as delusional or corrupt is itself a form of solipsism. He says, religion makes people think the universe revolves around them. Yet in reality, religion has historically reminded humans of their smallness, their fragility, their moral responsibility. It teaches humility, not cosmic self-importance. By contrast, placing humanity alone at the top of existence with no authority beyond itself can easily slip into the arrogance and self-centeredness that Hitchens claims to oppose. His claim that religions glorify death is one of the weakest and most dishonest parts of his discourse. The vast majority of religious traditions emphasize the protection of life, compassion toward the suffering, the sacredness of human existence, the importance of justice and mercy. Believers spend their lives building hospitals, founding orphanages, creating charities, preserving knowledge, and protecting the vulnerable. There is no serious historical or sociological evidence that religions inherently love death. Only extremists do, and extremists exist in every ideology. Hitchens takes a handful of pathological cases and tries to universalize them to billions of people. It is not just wrong, it is offensive to reality. Throughout his monologue, Hitchens never actually debates religion. He debates a caricature of religion, a version so extreme that almost no believer would recognize themselves in it. He does not speak to the lived experience of believers, to the ethical traditions of faith, to the vast diversity of interpretations, movements, philosophies, and spiritual expressions found across cultures. He engages with a fictional villain that he created for the sake of argument. And once the villain is invented, destroying it becomes easy. But the real world is more complex. Religion can be abused, yes. It can be manipulated, yes. It can be used to justify terrible things, just like nationalism, political ideology, revolutionary thinking, or scientific rhetoric have been used for harm. But religion can also heal, inspire, uplift, console, guide, unify, and dignify. It has produced art, music, literature, ethics, community, and hope when nothing else could. Faith is not a poison, it is a mirror. It reflects the heart of the one who uses it. Sometimes that heart is corrupted, sometimes it is noble. Destroying the mirror never removes the face. Hitchens' tagline, "Religion poisons everything," is not a conclusion. It is a slogan. It works on a book cover, not in a serious philosophical debate. The truth is that human beings, not religion, carry within them the potential for good and evil. What poisons the world is not faith, but hatred, arrogance, fear, and the lust for domination. These can attach themselves to any ideology, religious or secular. Religion does not create monsters, humans do. And no amount of rhetorical flair can change that basic fact of our nature.